God's chosen ones. God needs to speak to you right now. Don't anger him by ignoring. Chosen one, before you keep scrolling, stop for a moment. Take a breath. Let the noise around you become quiet for just a few minutes. Because sometimes the most important moments in life do not arrive with thunder. They arrive as a quiet conviction inside your heart, a feeling that tells you, pay attention, something needs to change. Maybe you've been feeling that lately. You can't fully explain it. You just know you're no longer satisfied with the way things have been. Something inside you feels restless. The old habits don't feel right anymore. Certain conversations don't feel meaningful anymore. Some relationships feel different. The things you once chased don't seem as important. And somewhere deep inside, you keep sensing that God is leading you towards something you cannot completely see yet. Don't ignore that feeling. But don't confuse God's direction with panic either. God does not need to terrify you into your purpose. He can lead you through peace. He can redirect you through circumstances. He can close a door without destroying your future. And sometimes his greatest message is not, run faster. Sometimes it is, slow down, listen, I am preparing you. You've spent enough time listening to everybody else. Today, listen to what is happening inside your spirit. Because the season ahead may require a different version of you. You are being called away from the noise. Look at the world around you. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has advice. Everyone seems to know what you should do with your life. Social media tells you what success should look like. Friends tell you what relationships should look like. Family members may tell you what career you should pursue. People compare their lives to yours. And before long, you can become so surrounded by other people's voices that you forget what your own heart sounds like. You wake up and immediately check your phone. You consume other people's opinions. You watch other people's achievements. You compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Then you wonder why you feel exhausted. Chosen one, you cannot hear clearly when your mind is constantly crowded. There are moments when you need to step away from the noise, not because you hate people, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you need space to hear what matters. Sometimes God speaks most clearly when everything else becomes quiet. That means you may need to spend less time explaining yourself and more time listening, less time proving yourself, more time preparing yourself, less time wondering who approves of you, more time asking whether you are walking in the direction God is placing on your heart. Because not every voice deserves access to your future. The restlessness you feel may have a purpose. Have you ever reached a point where everything looks fine from the outside, but something inside you says, this isn't it anymore? You may still have the same job, the same home, the same routine, the same people around you. But something has changed inside you. You have changed. And when you grow, certain environments begin to feel too small. This doesn't mean you should suddenly abandon everything. It means you should pay attention. Sometimes discomfort is an invitation to examine your direction. Think about a seed beneath the ground. From the outside, nothing seems to be happening. But inside the seed, something is pushing against the old structure. The seed cannot remain exactly as it was and become what it was created to become. It has to break open. Growth can feel uncomfortable because the old version of you is being stretched. Maybe that is what you're experiencing. You aren't necessarily falling apart. You may be outgrowing something, and there is a difference. You have been asking God to change your circumstances. Perhaps He is first changing your capacity to handle the circumstances that are coming. Your past does not disqualify you. Maybe you've been thinking about everything you've done wrong, the decisions you regret, the opportunities you missed, the people you hurt, the people who hurt you, the years you believe you wasted. Maybe you look at other people's lives and think, they seem so far ahead. But stop measuring your life that way. God is not limited by your timeline. Your past may explain where you've been, but it does not have to determine where you're going. Think about someone who gets lost while driving. Taking a wrong turn doesn't mean they can never reach their destination. They simply need to change direction. That's what grace does. It gives you the opportunity to turn around, to learn, to grow, to begin again. So stop telling yourself that you are too late. Stop saying that you have ruined everything. Stop believing that your mistakes are stronger than God's ability to restore. You may have made mistakes, but you are not your mistakes. You may have experienced failure, but you are not a failure. You may have lost years, but you have not lost your entire future. There is still something ahead of you. God may be closing doors you keep trying to reopen. This is difficult to accept. Sometimes we pray for God to open a door while He is trying to teach us to stop knocking on it. You keep thinking about the relationship, the opportunity, the friendship, the job, the place you wanted to live, the version of life you imagined. And because you wanted it so badly, you assume that getting it must be God's will. But wanting something does not automatically make it right for you. Sometimes what you desperately want would actually keep you trapped. Sometimes the person you miss is connected to a version of yourself you have already outgrown. Sometimes the opportunity you lost would have taken you somewhere you weren't meant to stay. And sometimes rejection is protection you don't understand yet. You don't have to hate what ended. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. You simply have to stop trying to resurrect what God may be asking you to release. There is freedom in saying, "If this door is not for me, give me the strength to stop forcing it." That prayer can change your life. The delay does not mean God said no. Maybe you have been waiting for your breakthrough, waiting for financial stability, waiting for healing, waiting for the right relationship, waiting for a new opportunity, waiting for clarity. And every month that passes makes you wonder, when is it going to happen? But what if the delay isn't denial? What if you are being prepared? Consider an airplane before takeoff. The passengers may be ready, the destination may be clear, but the plane still has to wait. There are procedures, there are conditions, there are things happening outside the passenger's view. From your seat it can feel like nothing is happening, but preparation is happening. Sometimes your life is like that. You see the waiting. God sees the preparation. You see an empty space. God sees what needs to be developed before that space can be filled. You see the absence of an opportunity. God may see the character you need before the opportunity arrives, so don't despise your preparation season. It may be the season that makes you capable of carrying what you have been praying for. Your faith will be tested in the quiet. It is easy to believe when everything is going well. It is easy to praise when the answer arrives. But what happens when you pray and nothing appears to change? What happens when you do the right thing and still face disappointment? What happens when you obey and the road becomes harder? That's where faith becomes deeper. Faith isn't the absence of questions. Faith is continuing forward despite questions. You don't have to know exactly how everything will work out. You don't need a 5-year map from heaven. You need enough faith for today's step. Tomorrow will have its own grace. Today's strength is not supposed to solve tomorrow's problems. You've been carrying future problems before they arrive. You've imagined conversations that haven't happened. You've worried about bills that haven't come. You've feared rejection before anyone rejected you. You've mourned outcomes that don't exist yet. Stop living inside imaginary disasters. Come back to today. Ask, what is the next right thing I can do? Then do that, and leave tomorrow where it belongs. Some of your loneliness is making room for clarity. There may have been a period when people suddenly disappeared from your life. At first it hurt. You wondered what you did wrong. You wondered why conversations became shorter, why invitations stopped, why people you trusted became distant. But sometimes separation is not punishment. Sometimes it is simply a change of season. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into every chapter. Some people accompany you for a season. They teach you something, you teach them something, and then the paths separate. That doesn't make the relationship meaningless. It means its purpose may have been completed. Don't chase people simply because you are afraid of being alone. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says, I'm forgotten. Solitude can say, I finally have space to hear myself. Use this season wisely. Read, pray, think, build, heal, learn, become stronger. You don't have to fill every empty space with another person. Sometimes the empty space is where God begins rebuilding you. You are not behind. This message is especially important if you've been comparing yourself to other people. Someone you went to school with is buying a house. Someone younger than you is running a successful business. Someone you know is getting married. Someone else is traveling. Someone else seems financially secure. And you're sitting there thinking, what am I doing with my life? Listen carefully. Their timeline is not your timeline. You don't know what happens behind their photographs. You don't know their private struggles. And you don't know what God is doing in your life that cannot yet be seen. A tree doesn't look at another tree and panic because it isn't growing at the same speed. It grows according to its own design. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified because your life doesn't look like someone else's. Stop turning someone else's blessing into evidence that you're failing. You can celebrate another person's success without making it a judgment against yourself. Your chapter is different. Let it be different. God is building something deeper than appearances. Maybe you've been asking for money. Maybe you've been asking for success. Maybe you've been asking for recognition. But perhaps God wants to give you something deeper first. Wisdom, discernment, peace, self-control, patience, courage, character. Because what good is getting everything you wanted if you don't have the emotional strength to handle it? Success without wisdom can become destruction. Influence without character can become dangerous. Money without discipline can disappear. A relationship without emotional maturity can become another source of pain. That's why preparation matters. God may be working on the person before changing the position. He may be developing the character before increasing the responsibility. He may be strengthening your foundation before increasing the size of your life. Don't rush the foundation. Nobody celebrates the foundation of a building because nobody sees it. But when the storm comes, the foundation is what determines whether the building stands. Your private growth may become the reason you survive your public success. Stop asking everyone for permission. One of the most exhausting things you can do is constantly seek approval. Do you think I should do this? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think people will like it? Do you think I'm making the right choice? Advice can be valuable, but there comes a moment when you have to stop outsourcing your life. Not everyone will understand your calling. Some people can only see what makes sense based on their own experience. If they have never walked your path, they may not understand why you're choosing yours. And that's okay. You don't need everybody to understand. You need to be responsible. You need wisdom. You need prayer. You need discernment. And sometimes you need the courage to move forward, even when people don't applaud. Your calling does not require unanimous approval. Your next chapter will require courage. Eventually, preparation has to become action. There comes a time when you have to move, apply for the position, start the business, write the book, leave the unhealthy environment, set the boundary, go back to school, make the phone call, take care of yourself, start again. Whatever your next step is, don't wait until fear disappears. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. Courage means fear doesn't get the final vote. You may never feel completely ready. Most people don't. The question isn't, am I completely fearless? The question is, am I willing to trust God enough to take the next step? You don't need to leap across the entire river. You need to take the next stone, then the next, then the next. That's how journeys happen. Don't let one bad chapter become your identity. Maybe someone called you a failure. Maybe someone rejected you. Maybe someone told you that you weren't good enough. Maybe you failed at something you desperately wanted to succeed in. Don't build your identity around one moment. You are still becoming. The person you are today is not the final version of you. There are lessons you haven't learned yet, strength you haven't developed yet, experiences you haven't encountered yet, and possibilities you haven't imagined yet. Your story is still being written. So don't hand the pen to your past. Don't let one person's opinion become your identity. Don't let one failure become your prophecy. You are allowed to begin again. A new season starts with a new mindset. If you want your life to change, you cannot continue thinking exactly the way you thought during the season that broke you. You have to renew your mind. Stop saying, "Nothing ever works for me." Instead say, "I am learning how to move differently." Stop saying, "I always choose the wrong people." Say, "I am learning to recognize what healthy relationships look like." Stop saying, "My life is over." Say, "This chapter is difficult, but it is not the end." Stop saying, "I can't." Ask, "What is one thing I can do?" Language matters because the story you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the lens through which you see your life. You don't have to lie to yourself. You don't have to pretend everything is perfect. Just stop speaking hopelessness over a future you haven't experienced yet. God has not finished with you. Chosen one, you may have entered this message feeling exhausted. Maybe you were close to giving up on something. Maybe you were questioning your direction. Maybe you needed confirmation that your life still has meaning. So hear this. You are not finished. There is still purpose in you. There are still lessons ahead. There are still opportunities you haven't encountered. There are still people whose lives may be touched by your story. And there is still work God can do through you. Your scars don't make you unusable. Your past doesn't make you unworthy. Your failures don't make you hopeless. Sometimes the people who have walked through the deepest valleys become the people who can offer the greatest compassion. The pain you survived can become wisdom. The rejection you endured can teach you discernment. The waiting can teach you patience. The loneliness can teach you dependence on God. Nothing has to be wasted. Now take the next step. So what do you do after hearing this? Don't just feel inspired for 10 minutes and then return to the same patterns. Take one practical step. If you've been avoiding something you know you need to do, face it. If you've been holding on to someone you need to release, begin releasing them. If you've been neglecting your spiritual life, return to prayer. If you've been constantly comparing yourself, step away from the noise. If you've been waiting for the perfect moment, take the next reasonable step. You don't need to transform your entire life tonight. Start small. One decision can change a direction. One habit can change a year. One prayer can change your perspective. One act of courage can open a door you were too afraid to approach. This is your reminder. Chosen one, perhaps you came here looking for a sign. Maybe this is simply a reminder. Don't quit because you cannot see the result yet. Don't walk away from your purpose because the road became difficult. Don't assume God has abandoned you because the answer hasn't arrived. Don't return to what broke you simply because the future feels unfamiliar. And don't let the chaos around you become the chaos within you. Protect your peace. Protect your mind. Protect your time. Choose your relationships carefully. Listen more. Pray more. React less. And trust that not every unanswered question needs an immediate answer. Some answers reveal themselves through time, some through experience, some through closed doors, some through growth, and some only make sense when you look backward. Final blessing. Now, take one more breath. Release the pressure you've been carrying. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to know exactly where this road leads. You only need enough faith to keep walking. The chapter you are in may be uncomfortable, but uncomfortable does not mean hopeless. The waiting may be long, But long does not mean forgotten. The door may be closed, but closed does not mean your life is over. The road may be unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not mean you're lost. Keep moving with wisdom, keep praying, keep learning, keep becoming. And when fear tells you that nothing will ever change, remember everything you have already survived. When doubt tells you that you are behind, remember that your journey has its own timing. When your past tells you that you are disqualified, remember that your past is not the final authority over your future. And when the world becomes too loud, step away long enough to hear what truly matters. Your life has purpose. Your story has meaning. Your future is not determined by your worst day. You are still becoming. You are still growing. You are still being prepared. And there is still more ahead. If this message spoke to your heart, write "I trust God's timing" in the comments. Not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you're choosing to trust even without seeing the entire road. And if you needed this message today, remember it the next time fear gets loud. You don't have to run. You don't have to panic. You don't have to force every door. Take the next step, then another, and another. Because sometimes the miracle isn't that God suddenly reveals the entire path. Sometimes the miracle is that He gives you enough light to keep walking. Your story is still being written. Your purpose is still alive. And this chapter is not the end.